Once again, I get another main event wrong, and this weekend I just watched JDM get obliterated by Mr. CP for 3 rounds straight. Now, I have mixed feelings about this. On the one hand, I'm a very big CP fan. We all love to watch CP in the morning. Regardless of the jokes, though, I also believe that JDM, he's also one of my favorite fighters, and watching JDM get bitched around like that, kind of depressing to me. But JDM ultimately crumbles in the 3rd round against Carlos Prates. And I'm going to be real, JDM is a tough son of a bitch for lasting that long, because we've seen Carlos Prates just instantly fold guys in the 2nd or 1st round. But because JDM was tough, it only delayed the inevitable, and in that CP was able to get another highlight reel KO. Do I think that Carlos Prates is going to get the next title shot? Probably not, because there is Ian Gary, and as much as I despise Ian Gary, this win over Jack Della Maddalena basically validates that Ian Gary is the undeniable #1 contender. Carlos Prates, if you're hearing me out, please sleep out Ian Gary if you guys get a rematch. Or Islam Micallef even. Please sleep out Ian Gary. I fucking hate him so much. But regardless of my hate for Ian Gary, the biggest difference in this fight was the dynamic strikes that Carlos Prates was able to use. Because not only does he have power in every single one of his limbs, he knows how to mix it up very well. And I did say that although JDM is the better boxer, Carlos Prates was able to outstrike JDM in nearly every other aspect in the striking department. Whether it be in the clinch and throwing knees up the middle, or throwing head kicks, leg kicks, elbows. Carlos Prates just has way more dynamic weapons than JDM. And the only thing JDM could really do was throw a couple of shots, which I'm going to be fair. I thought those were clean shots. It's just that CP has a pretty durable chin. And I do think that JDM, he had moments, right? Even though he got absolutely destroyed. But it's unfortunate that CP just has this different level of power. I've seen in the past JDM being able to walk through guys with his high-tight guard and being able to just pick his shots after getting hit in the guard. But Carlos Prates has that different level of power, and that ultimately kind of froze JDM in his tracks. But yeah, either way though, congratulations to Carlos Prates for getting the job done. And I hope to see him get the next title shot, alright? I know Morales is there, but still though, CP had a statement-making performance against Jack Della Maddalena. And I'm gonna be real, I think that Carlos Prates beats Ian Gary in a rematch, and he might even beat Islam Micallef, right? I don't think that's completely ridiculous to say after this performance. Sure, you could say that Islam Micallef outclassed Jack Della Maddalena. Carlos Prates took JDM's soul. If you compare their performances side by side, Islam Micallef took it easy on him. Alright, JDM didn't leave with a scratch on him when he fought Islam Micallef. But against Carlos Prates, he got butchered so badly, right? And although you could say that, MMA math doesn't work, yes, but at the same time, though, I also do believe that Carlos Prates is a dangerous striker that can knock anybody out, all right? So who's to say that Carlos Prates can't just knock out Islam Micallef with one left hand? I don't think Islam Micallef's ever felt the power of an elite level welterweight with one punch knockout power. Alright, so I do feel like Carlos Prates has a solid chance, and I would love to see him fight the winner between Ian Gary and Islam Micallef. But yeah, regardless though, this was a hell of a performance from Carlos Prates. But at the same time though, I am gutted for Jack Della Maddalena. So Beneil Dariush dies again, and this was a pretty sad one, because he actually had a chance. In the early parts of the 1st round, he was doing really well. He dropped Quillan Salkilld with a jab, and he was implementing his wrestling very well. But once Quillan Salkilld was able to separate himself off the cage, he immediately punishes Beneil Dariush with a right hand, and Dariush starts doing the Irish jig. And once you see Dariush doing the Irish jig, you know it's over. get slimed out, and that's basically what happened in this fight. Beneil Dariush, I think it's time for him to hang it up. And it's very unfortunate because I do think that he still has the skills. It's just that his chin is not up to par at this point. But yeah, regardless though, this was a solid performance from Quillan Salkilld. He faced adversity early on in this fight. And he was also able to withstand that adversity and eventually find his shots in order to put away a crafty veteran. So for that, I gotta give props to Quillan Salkilld. It is kind of a question as to how far Salkilld can make it into the rankings. I do believe that if he fights more durable fighters in their prime compared to Dariush, I do think that Quillan Salkilld will be met with more resistance, but who knows, alright? Maybe Dariush is just a very crafty vet, and Quillan Salkilld will drastically level up after this performance. But yeah, this was a pretty impressive performance from Quillan Salkilld, even though he came in as a minus 400 favorite, and everybody basically picked him to knock out Beneil in the first round. He actually fought some adversity against Beneil. Alright, Beneil just didn't go and immediately get slimed out like what happened in his BSD fight. And Quillan Salkilld was able to win despite getting dropped early on in this fight. So I gotta say congratulations to Quillan Salkilld. Steve Erceg gets the job done via decision, through composure, through technical boxing, and overall just pacing himself a lot better than Tim Elliot. Now in the first round, low-key, I was kind of worried. You know, Tim Elliot coming out here like a spastic cokehead and just started throwing a bunch of random shit out of nowhere. And I think that kind of confused Steve Erceg at first. But once Tim Elliot started to slow down, because again, he's doing a lot of bullshit on the feet and just doing a lot of goofy stuff, Steve Erceg was able to find his jab and eventually kind of made Tim Elliot look completely silly out there. So yeah, this was a good performance from Steve Erceg overall. It's kind of unfortunate he doesn't have any knockout power in his hands, because had he had even a little bit, I do think he would have been able to put away Tim Elliot in the later rounds. But he still got the job done. Alright, so I'm not going to criticize him for that. You know, he did technically look like a really good fighter out there, and I was pretty impressed with him. So yeah, this was a good performance from Steve Erceg. Couldn't get the finish, but that's okay. Tim Elliot does have a pretty durable chin, and he was able to show the more technical side of his game by just outstriking Tim Elliot in the later rounds of this fight. Marwan Rahiki destroys Ollie Schmid with relative little resistance. The only highlight of this, other than the knockout, was the fact that Marwan Rahiki and Ollie Schmid was listed as 5'8" and 6 feet tall respectively, yet when you look at them in the cage, they look exactly the same height. I don't know what's up with that, but the UFC keeps on doing this. I don't know why they keep on doing this. But yeah, regardless though, Marwan Rahiki gets the job done in first round. Do I think Ollie Schmid is all that? Not really. So hard to tell whether or not this is a good win. You know, Ollie Schmid, after all, is 4-3 in his professional career. But chances are the UFC is probably going to give him another chance to prove himself to be a UFC level fighter. So hopefully he can win. But as for Marwan Rahiki, I want to see him fight someone who's actually pretty good. All right? I don't want to see him fight another Can. I know this wasn't like planned because originally he was supposed to fight Jack Jenkins, but I do believe that Marwan Rahiki deserves at least someone who's like within the top 30 of the featherweight division. So hopefully Marwan Rahiki can put on a more back and forth fight. And I do think that he is pretty good, but I want to see him get tested a little bit before I truly claim that Rahiki can be like a future champion in the featherweight division. Yeah, this was a very unfortunate fight for us Blob fans. You know, we watched our GOAT Shamil the Blob Gaziev get slimed out in the second round by Brando Pericic. And I'm not going to lie, Pericic does look good. Now, his defense is kind of sus. Shamil Gaziev was able to tag him with a lot of shots. But credit to Pericic, he does have a pretty durable chin based off what we've seen so far. But yeah, Pericic is a different level to the blobs of the heavyweight division. Like, he can set his shots up. He's not just throwing an overhand right over and over again. I actually do like Brando Pericic as a prospect in the heavyweight division. So hopefully he keeps on winning. I don't know who the UFC is going to give this guy next. Maybe someone within the top 10, maybe like I don't know, maybe like a Ante Delia. I don't know, depend on what Ante Delia is doing at the moment. But either way, though, Brando Pericic gets the job done via second round TKO. I got nothing else to really complain about this fight. This was overall a very solid performance, especially when you consider the fact that it's in heavyweight MMA. Yeah, pack it up, Tuivasa. I don't know what else to say. Like, this was a blob off of the ages, and I thought that Tuivasa, I know he's washed, and he's on like a 7-fight win streak right now, but I thought that he could beat Louie Sutherland. But unfortunately, Tuivasa is so bad that Louie Sutherland looks like prime Khabib Nurmagomedov out there. And I'm gonna be real, I still don't think Louie Sutherland's all that good. Right? Because outside of Tai Tuivasa, he has been getting butchered by everybody else. So, unfortunate, but I think it's time for the UFC to cut Tai Tuivasa. I mean, the guy hasn't won a fight since 2022. How the hell is he still on the roster? I have no idea. But either way, though, Louie Sutherland gets the job done. I was not particularly impressed with this performance, but I guess Louie Sutherland, like, he can do what he wants. So, yeah, this was kind of sad, though, considering where Tai Tuivasa came from. Like, this guy was about to fight John Jones for the heavyweight belt. And now, fast forward 3 years later, like, he's literally just a couch potato getting in the ring for a paycheck. Like, it's just kind of disgraceful at this point. But, yeah, Tai Tuivasa ultimately gets another loss. So I expect him to be cut from the UFC roster come this Tuesday. Now, I picked Cam Rowston to win this fight. I didn't think he was going to win the way he did, though. I always knew Cam Rowston as this very lanky striker who can pick his shots very well. But his grappling seems to be improving because in this fight, he just grapple-fucked Robert Bryczek for 3 rounds. And really tested out his wrestling and jiu-jitsu and top control. It could just be that Robert Bryczek is absolute trash when it comes to wrestling and grappling in general. But at the same time, though, this is a lot better from Cam Rowston than what I've watched him get smudged by Taurus Finney of all people. Alright, so I do think it could be a little bit of both. Only time will tell whether or not Cam Rowston is going to be a legit prospect in the middleweight division. But he gets the job done via grappling, which I did not think it was going to happen. Wasn't the best fight, if I'm going to be completely honest. Like, I do think that this was a little bit boring compared to most of Cam Rowston's fights. But, hey, he showed his well-roundedness, so I'm not going to complain too much just because it was a little bit more boring than normal. Kevin Christian gets victimized by Junior Tafa. He might replace Anshu Jubli as one of the best victims in the UFC right now. So, Junior Tafa victimizes Kevin Christian. Not much to really break down other than the fact that Junior Tafa just outstruck him for the entire first round. Kevin Christian can land a couple of calf kicks now and then, but he's just so open on the feet despite being 6 feet 7 inches tall. Very unfortunate that even though you have all that height and range, you still don't know how to use it properly. But either way, though, Junior Tafa finally gets a win in the light heavyweight division. All right, we have a Junior Tafa win in the UFC in 2026. I don't know what that says about the division, but I don't think it's good, to say the least. I said that Jacob Malkoun was going to win this fight, but I'm a little bit disappointed from Malkoun. All right, I expected him to instantly dust up Gerald Meerschaert in the first round because Meerschaert has been getting slimed out in the first round quite a bit as of recently. But Malkoun just never really followed up every time he had Meerschaert hurt. Like, yes, he was able to sting Meerschaert with the jab and rock his head back, but Malkoun would never really throw the right hand to follow up to that or throw any combinations. He just stuck at range, picking apart Gerald Meerschaert. The third round was pretty interesting, though, because Meerschaert was able to reverse the position and get himself a mounted guillotine and kind of choke out Jacob Malkoun, but unfortunately he ran out of time. But yeah, either way, though, this was not the most inspiring performance from Jacob Malkoun. I do think that there needs to be improvements. Otherwise, he's just not going to get any big favorable jumps up in competition. But he won the fight, so I guess congrats to him. But yeah, this was not the best performance, to say the least, when we've literally watched a lot of people slime out Gerald Meerschaert in the past. Now, I picked Colby Thicknesse to win this fight. But when I watched this fight, I can't explain to you how he won. Because Colby Thicknesse should not have won. Alright, now in round 1, he did pick his shots, and he was able to get the fight to the ground and nearly submit Vince Morales with an armbar and a triangle, so I gave him round 1. But outside of that, though, I thought that Vince Morales was clearly winning. Like, in the second round, sure, not a lot happened in this fight, but I thought that Vince Morales was landing the better shots clearly, and Colby Thicknesse didn't really have an answer to them. And especially in the third, where he dropped Colby Thicknesse and was about to finish him at one point in the fight, I thought that Vince Morales should have won 2-1. Very unfortunate for Vince Morales. I did kind of consider him to win, but it's just that he's 3-9 in the UFC, so I don't know how good he is, to be honest. But I thought he was good enough to win this fight against Colby Thicknesse. Yeah, because again, I didn't think that Colby Thicknesse did enough work in the second round to ultimately win this fight 29-28 via decision. So yeah, I'm a little bit disappointed from the judges as well as Colby Thicknesse. It's kind of also disappointing that Vince Morales is going to get cut from the UFC after this fight because he's not really going to... He's 3-9. I don't know how you can argue someone to be on the UFC roster when they're 3-9 in the UFC. Although they're not, terrible by any means. It just looks like a bad look, in my opinion. But yeah, Colby Thicknesse, he was able to out-grapple Mr. Morales, which kind of surprised me. But at the same time, though, I thought that Vince Morales still should have won this fight using the striking because he just looked like the better striker out there. So I'm kind of disappointed about Colby Thicknesse and his performance. How are you losing to Wes Schultz in the year 2026? Seriously, how the hell did Wes Schultz win this fight? Wes Schultz should not be winning a UFC fight in the year of 2026. But because Ben Johnston is a professional bag salesman, somehow Wes Schultz gets his first victory in the UFC octagon. Yeah, this is not looking great, to say the least. But Wes Schultz, I will say, he kind of gritted through. I thought that he was immediately going to falter over in the first round. But Ben Johnston, he's just a professional bag salesman. I can't even rate Wes Schultz still because he didn't look good. He was getting destroyed in the first 2 rounds of this fight. But because Ben Johnston is pretty soy, you just can't rely on him to finish a fight in the later rounds of a fight. And ultimately, that was the story. He just threw the fight that he had in his hands. And it's very unfortunate because I do think that Ben Johnston was proven to be the better fighter. It's just that he has no cardio. And I don't know, man. He just kind of sold the bag on this one. So I'm very disappointed in Ben Johnston overall. But Wes Schultz gets his first win in the UFC octagon. So I guess I could say congratulations. This was a disappointing performance from Johnathan Micallef. I knew that Micallef was going to be the better fighter, and he did win. But I expected it to be more dominant. And I even expected it to finish Themba Gorimbo. We watched the dead corpse of Vicente Luque finish Themba Gorimbo in the first round. I thought that Micallef was going to be able to finish Themba Gorimbo as well, but he couldn't. If anything, Themba Gorimbo got the better of the wrestling exchanges at moments, but ultimately Micallef was able to outstrike Themba Gorimbo in the third round. Still doesn't raise my confidence in Johnathan Micallef, though. Again, I expected a lot better from Johnathan Micallef in this fight, but he won the fight, so I guess there's that. This was a really good bounce-back win for Kody Steele. He basically twisted up Dom Marfan like a pretzel. Now, going into this fight, I knew that Kody Steele has elite-level BJJ, but I thought he was going to be more of a ground-and-pound control type of guy. But in this fight, he was able to show his deep tool bag when it comes to the jiu-jitsu, and he gets a knee bar submission, which is not very common in the UFC, to say the least. So yeah, great job from Kody Steele, and overall, I think he's back on track to being a prospect to be out on the lookout for in the lightweight division. Overall, I'm gonna say that this card, it was like a 6 out of 10. You know, there was a lot of good fights towards the later half of this card. But at the same time, though, this was at fucking 4 in the morning, and let's just say the prelims were not that great to watch, especially at 4 in the morning. But yeah, otherwise, though, leave any comments down below what you guys thought about UFC Perth, Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. Leave your comments down below who you guys would have Carlos Prates fighting, as well as any other matchups. But otherwise, though, like and subscribe, and I will see you guys tomorrow for the fights to make after UFC Perth. Peace.